The wind carried the dry scent of hay and distant smoke as Evelyn Hart stepped down from the stagecoach, her boots crunching against the gravel outside the small station in Cold Hollow, Wyoming. Her hand gripped the handle of her carpet bag tighter than she meant to. It had been a long ride west, and even longer months since she'd buried her father back in Ohio. She had no family left now, no place to call home. Just this job, teaching a girl she'd never met, on a ranch she'd never seen, hired by a man who'd only ridden once. The driver, an older man with cracked lips and a permanent squint, nodded toward a wagon waiting nearby. "That's for you, miss." Carver Ranch. Evelyn gave a tight smile and walked toward it, her spine straight but her stomach uneasy. A teenage boy sat up front, holding the reins. He looked her over with suspicion, then jerked his chin toward the seat. "You the new teacher?" "I am." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Evelyn Hart." He didn't respond, only clicked his tongue at the horses and started them down the dirt road. The ride was rough, quiet. Evelyn kept her hands folded in her lap, eyes scanning the pale hills dotted with scrub and rusting barbed wire. She could feel the boy glancing at her every now and then, testing her, maybe. This wasn't a place that welcomed outsiders. After an hour, the land opened up into a valley, and there it was, Carver Ranch. Fences stretching out in wide lines, barns set back from a worn path, and a tall house of faded redwood that looked proud even as it aged. A girl stood near the porch steps, barefoot, her dress hanging too loose on her frame. Black hair tangled, dark eyes that didn't blink much. "That's Mary," the boy muttered. "She don't talk." The wagon stopped. Evelyn climbed down slowly, not wanting to scare the girl. Mary didn't move, didn't even look her way, just kept her arms crossed and eyes fixed on the ground like she was waiting for something bad to happen. Evelyn swallowed her nerves and stepped closer. "Hello, Mary. I'm here to be your teacher." No answer, no glance, only the faintest twitch of her jaw. The boy hopped off the wagon and pulled her bag down. "She don't talk to no one since her ma died. And Mr. Carver, he ain't around much. You'll be on your own with her." Evelyn turned toward him. "And who are you?" "Luke. I work here sometimes." Then he added, after a beat, "If she runs off, you won't find her easy. She's wild that way." Before Evelyn could say more, he took the horses and left her standing there. Mary turned and walked into the house without a word. The inside of the house was dim, cooler than outside. A layer of dust clung to the windowsills. The kitchen table held a stack of unopened letters, a dirty plate, and a fork laid across it like someone had gotten up halfway through eating and never came back. Evelyn set her bag down and looked around. No photos, no books, just worn floorboards and that heavy silence that settles in homes where grief has lived too long. She found Mary upstairs in a narrow room, sitting on the bed with her legs folded under her. She looked at Evelyn like she'd already decided not to trust her. "I'll be sleeping across the hall," Evelyn said softly. "You and I, we'll start lessons in the morning. But tonight, let's just get to know each other." Mary didn't answer, didn't blink. That night, Evelyn lay awake for a long time. She could hear the wind pressing against the house, creaks in the walls, and faint footsteps, Mary's, walking the hallway long after dark, like a little ghost. The next day, Evelyn started her lessons at the kitchen table. Mary showed up late, barefoot, a smear of dirt on her arm. She didn't speak, but she watched. Always watched. And sometimes, when Evelyn read aloud, she'd see Mary's hand twitch, like the girl was trying to hold something in. A week passed like that. Then, too, Mary stayed silent. But she listened, and she never ran off. Evelyn learned her patterns when she wandered outside, where she hid when the ranch hands shouted too loud, how she never touched her mother's room. The house held Mary's grief like a closed drawer no one dared open. Evelyn hadn't seen the man who owned the ranch yet. Luke said his name was James Carver. Said he kept to himself. Said he was strange, but fair. One night, Evelyn stepped out onto the porch. The sun was just dipping behind the ridge, bleeding orange into the hills. And that's when she saw him. He was standing near the barn, arms folded, watching. Watching her. She didn't know how long he'd been there, but it wasn't the first time. Something in the stillness of him felt familiar now, like she'd sensed eyes on her before and hadn't known where to look. Tall, broad shoulders, face shaded by a hat. He didn't move when she stepped off the porch. Didn't call out or wave. Evelyn crossed the dirt slowly. "You're Mr. Carver?" He nodded once. His eyes were dark and unreadable. His voice, when he finally spoke, was quiet. "I've been watching how you are with her. She's trying," Evelyn said. "She's broken, but not beyond fixing." He looked past her toward the house. She was never supposed to see what she saw. What did she see? His jaw worked. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." But he shook his head, turned away, and walked back toward the dark of the barn without another word. That night, Mary left a note under Evelyn's pillow, for words in shaky pencil. He buried her himself. Evelyn held the paper in her hands for a long time, her pulse loud in her ears. Something was wrong here, something deeper than grief. She didn't sleep, just listened to the wind and wondered what kind of man hides in the shadows of his own ranch, watching the woman he hired to save his child. Evelyn kept Mary close after the note. She didn't bring it up, not yet, but she watched more closely. Every silence now carried weight. Every glance out the window made her wonder who might be watching. Mary had scribbled those words like they burned to write, then refused to speak of them. She went back to her blank stares and sudden disappearances, but Evelyn noticed a change. The girls stayed nearer during lessons. She sat beside her longer in the evenings. Her silence no longer felt like defiance. It felt like protection. The next morning, Evelyn decided to learn more about the people on the ranch. If she was going to help Mary, she needed to understand what this place was hiding. She found Luke hauling feed to the stables and offered to help, grabbing a sack too heavy for her. He didn't stop her, but he watched her arms strain under the weight and smirked like she was playing dress-up. "You said Mr. Carver wasn't around much," she said as they walked. "He comes and goes," Luke replied. "Doesn't sleep in the house, not since her mama died. Sleeps in the old bunkhouse sometimes out in the hills." "What happened to her mother?" Luke didn't answer right away. He dumped the feed into a trough and dusted off his hands. "You sure you want to know that?" Evelyn's heart thudded. "Yes." Luke leaned back against the post, chewing on a sliver of straw. "Miss Lorna was different. Kind. Quiet like him. But something changed after Mary was born. She got sick a lot. Cried a lot, too. Then one day, she just wasn't around anymore. Mr. Carver said she wandered off. Got lost in the cold." Evelyn's mouth went dry. "And he buried her?" Luke shrugged. Said he found her in a ravine a few days later. Buried her himself. No funeral, no preacher. Just a cross out past the creek. "Did anyone else see her?" "No one but him." Luke's voice dropped. "But I seen the bruises once before she disappeared. On her arms." Evelyn blinked. "You think he—" "I don't think nothing," Luke cut in. "Man loses his wife. People give him space. But that girl, she saw something. I can feel it." Evelyn couldn't shake the image. Mary, small, scared, watching something too awful for a child to understand. And now she was left in a house full of ghosts. Later that week, Evelyn met Nora, the ranch cook, who only came twice a week from town to prepare meals and leave supplies. Nora was older, with gray streaks in her braid and strong hands that smelled like onions and flour. She looked Evelyn up and down like she was measuring her for something. "You staying long?" Nora asked as she kneaded dough. "As long as Mary needs me. That girl needs a lot more than just books." Evelyn watched her work. "Why doesn't anyone talk about what happened here?" Nora let out a sharp breath. "Because James Carver is the only one who keeps this place from falling apart. Men like that people leave be, even when they shouldn't. Was he ever cruel to Lorna?" Nora paused, her knuckles deep in dough. "He wasn't like that. But grief can turn men inside out. After she died, he changed. Barely spoke. Stopped going into town. Sent word for you through a lawyer. Didn't even come himself." "Why?" Nora's eyes soften a little. Because Mary screams when he walks in a room, and he don't know how to fix that. Evelyn couldn't get those words out of her head. That night, she found Mary sitting by the window, her knees pulled to her chest. The moonlight lit her face, and Evelyn noticed something. Faint scars at the base of her neck. Not fresh, not accidental. She knelt beside her. "Did someone hurt you?" Mary didn't speak, but her eyes brimmed. Just once she nodded. Evelyn reached for her hand, but Mary pulled away, curling into herself. The next day, Evelyn walked out toward the far end of the property, where Luke said the cross stood. The grass was high and brittle. Coyotes yipped in the distance. Then she saw it. Weathered wood, slanted into the earth with no name on it. Just a stone beside it, smoothed by wind. She stood there for a long time. When she turned back toward the house, James Carver was there. He hadn't made a sound. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "I wanted to see where she was buried." He looked past her toward the wooden cross. "I didn't know how to say goodbye. You didn't let Mary say it either." He didn't respond. Evelyn took a step closer. "She's afraid of you. What did you do to her?" James's jaw clenched. "Nothing. She has scars." His eyes snapped to hers. "Not from me." "Then from who?" He didn't answer, just turned and walked away. But something in the way he moved, rigid, wounded, told her he wasn't lying. At least, not completely. That night, Mary left another note beneath her pillow. This one said, "He didn't hurt me, but he let her." Evelyn read it over and over. Let who? She remembered what Luke had said about bruises. Not just on Mary, on Lorna. She stayed up late at the table, writing questions on paper for Mary. When she slid it across to her the next morning, Mary stared at the page for a long time. Then she picked up the pencil and, one word at a time, wrote, "Mama was mean when she drank." Evelyn's stomach turned. All this time, she'd been watching for danger in the wrong direction. Mary had been trying to protect herself from her own mother. She reached for Mary's hand again, and this time, Mary let her take it. When Evelyn stepped outside later, James Carver was leaning against the porch rail, a rare look of weariness in his face. "I know she's talking to you," he said. "I can feel it. She's telling the truth in her own way." He nodded. "She used to hide in the barn when Lorna got like that. I didn't know at first. I thought it was me Mary feared. Thought I'd failed her." "You didn't hurt her," Evelyn said, watching his eyes. No, his voice cracked, but I didn't stop it soon enough. By the time I knew, Lorna had already broken something in that girl. Evelyn leaned beside him. "You're trying now." He looked at her then. Really looked. "Why'd you come, Evelyn?" "Most folks wouldn't stay a week in this house." "Because she's still here, still breathing. And someone has to show her she's not alone." James took off his hat, running a hand through hair dark with dust and worry. "I don't know how to be your father anymore. Start with being present." He laughed bitterly. "I could buy cattle, fix fences. I don't know how to sit at a table and ask a little girl how she's feeling." "Then don't ask. Just sit. Let her know you're not leaving." James nodded slowly, like the idea hurt more than any gunshot. "You really think I can fix this?" Evelyn looked toward the window where Mary was watching them. "She's not asking you to fix it. She just needs you to stay." And for the first time since she arrived, Evelyn saw it. Hope in Mary's eyes. Not much, but enough. James began sitting at the kitchen table in the evenings. He didn't say much, mostly just sat with a cup of coffee, listening to Evelyn read to Mary from a worn leather book of prairie stories. At first, Mary kept her eyes down, too stiff to focus. But the third night, she shifted a little closer. By the fifth, she was tracing the edge of James's cup when she thought no one was watching. He noticed but said nothing, just left the cup there longer. Evelyn paid attention to those silences. They weren't heavy anymore. They were patient. Mary had been taught to fear words, and now she was learning that stillness could be safe. She started helping Nora in the kitchen, shyly dusting flour over biscuits, kneading dough with her whole small body leaning into it. Nora didn't talk much either, just gave gentle nods and sometimes a wink. Mary responded to that more than praise. She needed quiet trust, not attention. One afternoon, Mary tugged Evelyn's sleeve as she was organizing books. She handed her a folded drawing, done in faint pencil lines. Evelyn unfolded it slowly and saw three figures, one tall with a hat, one with a braid, one small between them. They were holding hands in front of the house. It wasn't perfectly drawn. Mary was still learning perspective, but it was clear what she meant. Evelyn felt her eyes sting. "Is that us?" Mary gave a tiny nod, biting her lip. "Can I hang it by the window?" Mary thought about it, then nodded again. Later that day, Evelyn found James chopping wood behind the barn, sweat staining the back of his shirt. She showed him the drawing. He stared at it longer than she expected. "She's coming back to us," Evelyn said. "I don't know if I deserve it." "That's not up to you," she replied. "She's choosing you." That night, James sat a little closer to the fireplace. When Evelyn read, he asked Mary about the stories. Simple questions, just one or two. Mary didn't answer out loud, but she nodded or shook her head. She was listening. Then one morning, Mary brought something unexpected, Lorna's old shawl. She held it out to Evelyn with both hands, face unreadable. The wool was faded but soft. There were stains on one edge that Evelyn didn't ask about. "Do you want to keep it?" Evelyn asked gently. Mary shook her head, then mummed wrapping it around someone. "You want me to wear it?" A small nod. Evelyn pulled it over her shoulders. It smelled of cedar and thyme. Mary stared for a long second, then whispered. She wore it when she wasn't drinking. It was the first full sentence Mary had spoken to Evelyn since she arrived. Evelyn knelt to her level, not wanting to break the moment. "Thank you for trusting me." Mary looked away, but her hands fidgeted with the hem of Evelyn's skirt, like she needed something to hold. That day, James fixed a broken swing out back. It had been hanging by one chain, creaking in the wind. He didn't say why. He just did it. When Mary saw, she didn't run to it. But later, after supper, Evelyn saw her sitting in it, quietly swinging in the dusk, her feet just barely brushing the dirt. Spring was coming fast, and the land was waking up. The thaw brought soft mud, the sounds of birds, and long stretches of golden light in the evenings. Evelyn began lessons outside when she could. She made letters in the dirt with a stick while Mary copied them beside her, drawing slower, more careful lines. James sometimes passed through on horseback, and when he did, he slowed to watch. He always tipped his hat to Mary, and sometimes, just barely, she lifted her hand in return. One morning, Mary asked if she could go with James to check the fence line. Evelyn was startled, but said yes. She helped her bundle up and watched them ride off together, Mary clinging tight to his coat. They were gone nearly 2 hours. When they returned, Mary was grinning, wide, full teeth showing, and James looked stunned by it. He helped her down from the saddle and didn't let go of her hand right away. "What did you see?" Evelyn asked Mary, crouching beside her. Mary pulled out a smooth, white stone. "He let me find it. Said it's a luck stone. Then we should keep it safe," Evelyn said, holding out her palm. "Want me to guard it?" Mary pressed it into her hand, then threw her arms around Evelyn's neck. The hug only lasted a few seconds, but it was the first Mary had given freely. That night, Evelyn found James standing outside under the stars, his face half lit by moonlight. "You gave her something more important than luck today," she said. He didn't smile, but his shoulders loosened. She fell asleep on the ride back. She hasn't done that in years. Not since before. Children sleep when they feel safe. "She makes me want to be better," he said quietly. "I don't think I ever knew how to be someone worth that." She's not asking for perfect, just present. He turned to face her. "And you? What do you need, Evelyn?" She wasn't expecting that. She crossed her arms against the cold. "I need her to believe in tomorrow. That's all. And after tomorrow," she looked at him, really looked. "I'll figure that out when I get there." Days passed gently. Nora began staying longer in the afternoons, sometimes letting Mary help shell peas or sweep the porch. Luke started teaching her to brush the horses, showing her how to read their moods. She was still quiet, but her silences had changed. They were filled with watching with choice, not fear. Evelyn, for the first time in a long while, felt something bloom in her too. A sense of place. She took to mending things around the house. A loose step, a torn curtain. James noticed. One evening, he brought her a chair from the cellar and said she could fix it up for the front room if she liked. She did. They started taking late walks along the fence line when Mary was asleep. Not far, just enough to stretch their legs and speak in low voices about nothing and everything. About Mary. About Lorna. About the things people don't say until they're too tired to pretend. Evelyn told him about the life she left behind. A boarding house job she didn't love. A broken engagement that didn't end in heartbreak so much as indifference. "I came here thinking I'd teach a child," she said one night. "But I think she's teaching me instead." James stopped walking. "You saved her." Evelyn turned to him. "No, she saved herself. I just showed up." He stepped closer. But showing up matters. The wind rustled the grass. He didn't touch her, not yet. But something passed between them. An understanding. Then one rainy afternoon, Mary brought out an old book from the back of the shelf. It was a family Bible, heavy and worn. She sat on the table and pointed to a page with names. Lorna's name was there, and James's, and under it, Mary Cole. Handwritten in ink. Proof of something solid. Evelyn looked at her. "You want us to read from it?" Mary nodded. James sat down without being asked. Together, they read from Psalms. Mary's voice barely above a whisper, but steady. And when it ended, Evelyn looked at both of them and realized something had changed. Not with fireworks, but with the quiet shifting of something old being made new. The next morning, Mary handed Evelyn a note again. Only this time it said, "I don't have bad dreams when you're here." Evelyn folded the note and kept it in her dress pocket all day. That night, when James passed by her room, he paused at the door. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For staying." Evelyn stood in the doorway, hands tucked behind her. "I didn't plan to, but now I can't imagine leaving." He stepped forward, close enough that she could feel the heat from his body. "Neither can I." They didn't kiss, not yet, but she knew it was coming. And when it did, it would be because something true had grown between them. Small moments, quiet things. That was how healing happened here. Not in grand gestures, but in the way a child reached for a hand. In the way two broken people learned to breathe again, side by side. And Evelyn knew the worst was not over. But they were no longer facing it alone. The days grew longer, and so did the shadows they tried not to look at. It started with a letter. James found it in town, wedged under the postmaster's desk, addressed to Evelyn in tidy Eastern script. She opened it slowly at the kitchen table, reading once, then again, her face going pale as milk. She didn't speak for a long time, just sat with the folded paper in her lap, like it had teeth. James waited until Mary had gone outside with Nora, chasing chickens, before asking. "Bad news?" She didn't answer right away. Then finally, she said, "My father is ill. Dying, maybe. You want me to come home?" James sat across from her. "Will you?" "I don't know." He watched her fingers tremble slightly. "You don't owe him anything. He's still my father." James looked away. He understood the weight of blood ties, the kind that pulled even when you want to cut them loose. Evelyn let out a sharp breath. "He never approved of me. I left after he called me a disgrace for not marrying the man he chose. We haven't spoken since. And now, he wants to see me. Because he's dying?" She nodded. "Or maybe he just wants to die with someone there to bear witness." James didn't offer comfort right away. "Would you leave, Mary?" Evelyn shook her head instantly. "I couldn't. She's finally opening up. If I disappear now, she might never trust again." "Exactly." She folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it behind the bread box. Out of sight, but not gone. That night, Mary wet the bed for the first time in weeks. She didn't cry, just sat up, stiff and silent, soaked through and staring at the wall. Evelyn cleaned her up in the dark, wordlessly. When she tucked her back into fresh sheets, Mary whispered. "You're not going away, are you?" Evelyn's heart cracked. "No, baby, I'm not." But even as she said it, the lie stung. Because part of her wanted to go. Part of her wanted to face her father, to find out if the hurt between them had turned to ash with time. But a louder part, the part that had grown roots here, was afraid. Afraid that going meant she might never come back. James grew distant after that. He worked longer hours, took the south field alone, didn't sit at the fireplace at night anymore. Evelyn tried to ignore it until she couldn't. One evening, she found him in the barn sharpening a blade that didn't need sharpening. "Are you angry with me?" she asked. He didn't look up. "No, you've been somewhere else these last few days." "I'm here." She stepped closer. "Then why do I feel like I'm talking to a wall?" James finally set the knife down. "Because I've lived through people leaving, and I don't think I can watch it happen again. I haven't left. Not yet." The barn was silent except for the steady patter of rain on the roof. "I don't know what I'll do," Evelyn admitted. "But I do know that every time I think of leaving, something in me fights it. This place you marry, you're not just people I'm helping. You're home." James's voice cracked. "Then why does it feel like I'm waiting for the door to shut?" Evelyn crossed him. "Because that's what fear does. It turns love into a threat." He didn't reach for her, didn't soften. But she saw the tears in his eyes and let him be. Some wounds weren't ready to be touched. The next few days were tense. Mary picked up on it quickly, retreating into herself. She stopped answering questions during lessons, started walking with her shoulders tight again. Evelyn cursed herself for letting her own indecision bleed into the girl's fragile progress. One afternoon, Mary lashed out, threw a book across the room when Evelyn corrected her spelling. "I hate it here," she screamed. "I hate you. You're going to leave like she did." Evelyn froze. The words were knives, but she didn't flinch. She knelt, slowly, and said, "I know you're scared." Mary ran outside, barefoot. Evelyn chased after her, through the mud, through the field, until she found her crouched behind the chicken coop, sobbing into her knees. "I'm sorry," Mary mumbled. "I didn't mean it." "I know. She said I was bad, and that's why she drank. And then she died. She was sick, Mary. Not because of you. Never because of you." Mary hiccuped through tears. "What if you go and forget me?" "I couldn't forget you if I tried." They sat there, in the mud and the cold, for a long time. And something shifted again, not in fire this time, but in the slow thaw of two people choosing each other again, even in pain. James watched from the window. He saw Evelyn carry Mary inside and clean her feet. He saw her tuck her in, stroke her hair, whisper something that made the girl's lashes flutter closed. He stood outside her door afterward, unsure if he should knock. When he finally did, she opened it quickly, like she'd been waiting. "I'm not going," she said. James didn't speak. "I wrote him back, told him I wished him peace, but I'm staying here." His voice was low. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Yes. I'm done trying to fix old ghosts when there are people here who need me alive." He stepped inside. "I'm one of them." "I know." They stood close. The silence between them no longer sharp, but warm. Evelyn reached for his hand, and this time he didn't pull away. "You're allowed to be afraid, James," she said softly. "So are you. But I'm here anyway." Then, finally, he kissed her. Not like a man claiming something, but like someone surrendering. She kissed him back, her fingers tangled in his shirt, grounding them both in something real. Later that night, Mary woke from a nightmare, and when she crept into Evelyn's room, she found both of them there, fully dressed, sitting on the edge of the bed, talking softly. James looked up. "You okay?" Mary nodded. "Can I stay?" Evelyn opened the blanket. "Always." The three of them lay there, not saying anything more. Mary in the middle, held by arms that meant safety. No one slept much, but it didn't matter. The next morning, a storm rolled in. Wind whipped the shutters, and the horses kicked against their stalls. James had to go out and check the barn doors, and Evelyn bundled Mary up to help Nora brace the porch windows. It was loud, wild weather, unsettling. Then a knock at the front door. Evelyn opened it slowly, bracing against the wind. A stranger stood there. A man in a long coat, hat dripping rain. He looked at her, then past her into the house. "I'm looking for James Carver," he said. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. "Why?" The man's face was calm. "Cold. Tell him Benjamin Trent is back. He'll know what that means." Evelyn felt her stomach drop. The man turned and walked away, vanishing into the storm like he'd never been there. When James came back in, soaked and windblown, she told him. His face went hard. Not fear, anger. "I thought he was dead." James muttered. "Who is he?" "The man who put a gun in Lorna's hand." Evelyn's breath caught. "You mean?" "He fed her pills, bought her drinks, told her she was nothing without him. Why try to stop it? He vanished. She thought he was all she had. And now he's back." The storm outside raged harder, but Evelyn could feel another storm coming. Inside the house. Inside James's soul. And for the first time in weeks, she wasn't sure they were safe. James didn't sleep that night. He sat by the fire long after Mary and Evelyn had gone to bed, staring into the flames as though they held some answer he'd been waiting for his whole life. The name Benjamin Trent rang in his ears like a bell, low, cold, final. A name soaked in shame and guilt and rage. A name that had once made him pack up a house, bury a woman, and go silent for years. Evelyn came downstairs near dawn, wrapped in a shawl, her eyes heavy with worry. She didn't ask if he'd slept. She already knew. He looked up at her, worn and raw. "I never told you the whole story." She sat beside him, quietly. James kept his eyes on the fire. "Lorna wasn't always sick. When we first met, she was bright, laughed easy. She had dreams. But she had scars too, ones I didn't see until after we married." He swallowed. "Trent. He came along while I was out working cattle. I didn't even know he existed until she was already hooked. On him, on the bottle, on the feeling of being seen again. He was older, slick. He'd feed her doubts like sugar. Told her I'd never love her the way he did. That she'd always be broken and I'd get tired." Evelyn's voice was a whisper. And she believed him? James nodded. She believed the worst things about herself. That's what he was good at. Making people see only their damage. By the time I found out, it was too late. He'd left town, and she wasn't the same. She kept waiting for him to come back. When he didn't, she broke. One night, she went out to the barn with a pistol. I heard it. I ran, but I was too late. Evelyn reached over and took his hand. He didn't pull away. "I blame myself," he said, "for not seeing it coming, for not saving her, for not being enough to make her stay. You were never the reason she left." He let the silence hang. He's back now, which means he wants something. Revenge. James's jaw clenched. Maybe. Or maybe he just wants to see if I'm still carrying her ghost. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "And are you?" James looked at her. For the first time, the answer was clear. "Not like I used to. Because of you. Because of Mary." Just then, as if summoned by her name, Mary patted down the stairs, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you both awake?" Evelyn smiled gently. "We're just talking, honey. Want to come sit?" Mary crawled into James's lap without a word, her head resting against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her automatically, protectively. And suddenly, James knew what he had to do. The next day, he rode into town. Evelyn didn't ask him not to. She just kissed his cheek, pressed her forehead to his, and said, "Come back safe." It had been years since he walked down that dirt road with a purpose that heavy. He found Trent where he knew he'd be, at the saloon, in the back, playing poker like the devil waiting for a soul to crack. Trent looked up the moment James stepped inside. "Well," he said, spreading his arms, "if it isn't the grieving widower." James didn't respond, just pulled up a chair across from him. The saloon quieted. "You got some nerve," James said flatly. Trent smiled. "And you got some memory. Thought time might have softened you." James leaned forward. "Why are you here?" Trent sipped his drink. "Because ghosts don't stay buried. And I've been wondering how long you'd keep pretending you were innocent in all that happened." James's voice didn't rise. "You fed her poison. She drank it. You told her she was broken. She already believed that. You made her think she had no way out. And you weren't enough to give her one? Trent finished. The saloon was dead quiet. James stood slowly. You think you won something when she died. You didn't. You just left wreckage behind and called it power. Trent shrugged. Same as any man, I guess. James's hand hovered near his side, but he didn't draw. Instead, he turned to leave. Trent stood, mocking. That's it? No fight? No justice? James turned. Justice was in surviving. Justice is in the girl I'm raising now who laughs again. In the woman who held my hand when I couldn't speak her name. You don't matter anymore, Trent. You're just a footnote in a better story. Trent sneered. You're still a coward. James didn't blink. No, just not broken anymore. He walked out of that saloon with the weight gone from his shoulders. And Trent, for all his poison, stayed behind, smaller than he'd ever seemed. When James rode back to the homestead, he found Evelyn and Mary out front, stringing laundry on the line. The wind was gentle, sun peeking through gray clouds. Evelyn looked up as he rode in and saw the change on his face before he even dismounted. You're lighter, she said simply. He walked to her, kissed her deeply. Mary giggled and turned away, pretending to be annoyed. I told him he didn't matter anymore, James said. Evelyn touched his cheek. And did he believe you? I don't care. I finally do. They spent the afternoon together, quiet chores, shared glances, small laughter. Mary picked flowers for the kitchen table and insisted they all sit together at supper. They held hands, all three of them, before eating. That night, Evelyn found James sitting on the porch under the stars. She wrapped a blanket around them both. Do you still see her? She asked gently. He nodded. Sometimes. But now she smiles. Evelyn leaned against his shoulder. Maybe now she's at peace. James's voice was soft. And maybe I can be too. They watched the stars blink overhead, their fingers entwined. Behind them, Mary slept peacefully. No more night terrors, no more screams. And inside James, where pain used to sit like a storm cloud, there was space again for love, for light, for the life he thought he'd never get back. The past hadn't left, but no longer ruled him. The days that followed passed slower, softer. The air had changed, just enough for everyone to breathe easier. Mary no longer looked over her shoulder when she played outside. Evelyn laughed more freely. Her eyes no longer weighed down with dread. And James moved through the house as if he finally belonged in it. Not as a man hiding from the past, but as one choosing the present. The morning after his return from town, James fixed the hinge on the back gate without anyone asking. He whittled Mary a tiny wooden horse and left it on her pillow. He filled Evelyn's water bucket before sunrise. These were quiet things, small, simple gestures, but each one wove a thread between the three of them, stitching something solid where fear used to live. That evening, Evelyn found him out by the corral, watching the sun fall behind the hills. The sky was pale gold and violet, and the horses moved slow in the fading light. She leaned against the fence next to him, her shoulder brushing his. You've been quiet today, she said. I've just been thinking. About what? He looked at her, his voice even. How easy it is to miss what you need when you're chasing ghosts. She held his gaze. And do you know what you need now? He didn't speak at first, just stepped closer, gently took her hands in his. You. This. A life I'm not scared of losing anymore. Her breath caught. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he kissed her, slowly, tenderly, like a man learning how to love again with both hands open. Evelyn kissed him back, her fingers curling into the collar of his shirt, grounding herself in his warmth. They didn't say much after that. Words felt too small. That night, after Mary had fallen asleep, clutching her wooden horse, Evelyn met James in the quiet of the bedroom. She had braided her hair and undone it again, twice, unsure why she felt nervous. But when he looked at her, when he reached for her with such unspoken care, the nerves faded. They undressed slowly, almost reverently, not out of lust, but out of something deeper, quieter. Maybe. Recognition. Healing. His hands were rough but gentle. Her breath came in little stutters, but he held her close until she steadied. They didn't rush. There was time now. There was room for softness. Afterward, they lay tangled in the quiet, his arm around her waist, her cheek pressed against his chest. Neither needed to speak. The silence between them had changed shape. It was no longer built from pain or fear. It was peace. In the morning, Mary found them in the kitchen, him cooking eggs, her pouring coffee. She looked between them, then smiled a knowing smile. "Does this mean you're my new paw now?" James set the skillet down. "Only if you want me to be." She nodded. "I do." Evelyn looked at him, heart full. James's voice caught just a little. "Then I'd be honored." The season shifted quickly after that. The mornings grew warmer, the air sweeter. Evelyn began teaching again in the little schoolhouse 2 valleys over. James and Mary would ride out to meet her after the last bell, bringing extra biscuits or sweet tea. They didn't talk much about the past anymore, not because it didn't matter, but because it didn't hold them hostage. Sometimes Evelyn would still catch James staring off, his eyes distant. But now, when she touched his arm, he'd blink and smile and return to her. He always returned. One evening, as they all sat on the porch, Mary with her drawing pad, Evelyn mending a hem, James whittling a toy sheep, Evelyn said softly, "I used to think I was just passing through, that I didn't belong anywhere." James didn't look up from his carving. "And now," she smiled, "now I think I've been headed here all along." He reached over, laid his hand on her knee. "Then let's stay. No more drifting. No more waiting for the next thing to fall apart." "All right," she whispered. Mary didn't say anything, but she moved closer, resting her head on Evelyn's side. Evelyn kissed the girl's crown and held her. Night fell slowly, wrapping the land in calm. The wind carried no cries, no echoes of pain, just the rustle of leaves and the hush of a life being rebuilt, one breath at a time. And as the stars blinked awake above them, the 3 stayed just like that, together, whole, and finally home.